Eala sees abrupt end to Australian Open debut with doubles loss. Manila, Philippines, the Australian Open debut of Eala has officially come to an end. Eala saw her first stint in the Grand Slam tournament draw to a close after absorbing a tough three-set defeat in doubles action, 6-3, 7, 6-2, 3-6 at the hands of Shuko Aoyama and Magda Linette Tuesday at Melbourne Park. Eala and her partner, Ingrid Martens, forced the third set after a heartbreaking loss in the first set, but they eventually faltered after 2 hours and 38 minutes of action. The Filipino-Brazilian duo had a strong start in the match, going up 4-0. Aoyama and Linette, though, climbed out of that hole and won the next 3 games to cut it to just a game apart, 3-4. But Eala and Martens were able to move to set point, 5-3, before their opponents tied things up anew, 5-5. Eala and Martens, however, got the upper hand, but Linette and Aoyama forced the tiebreak, which they eventually won, 7-3. The Filipino-Brazilian pair then recovered with a dominant second set, forcing the third frame. But it seemed that Eala and Martens ran out of fuel, going down 0-4, a deficit they could not overcome. They tried to get out of the deficit, cutting it to 3-4, but Linette and Aoyama kept their composure with the finishing kick in the final 2 games. While the receiving points won by the 2 tandems were virtually identical, the victors' 61 service points won spelled the difference to their opponents' 55. The Filipina earlier exited the singles action after a 6-0, 3-6, 2-6 defeat to Alicia Parks on Monday. Beyond the baseline, the unscripted drama of Eala's Australian Open debut. When dreams meet reality under the Melbourne sun ***. For a young athlete, a Grand Slam debut is a canvas, wide, unmarked, and full of promise. For Alexandra Eala, the 2026 Australian Open was supposed to be exactly that, a blank slate, a fresh chapter to be written with grit, talent, pride, and perhaps even fairy tale moments. But as the dust settled on Melbourne Park's courts this January, under a sun that scorched hard courts and expectations alike, Eala's historic run came to an abrupt end. It was the kind of exit that doesn't just close a book, it leaves the reader wanting more. The prelude, a moment the Philippines had waited for. At just 20 years old, Eala stood tall among tennis's brightest young talents, having broken into the WTA top 50 and carried the hopes of an entire nation on her racket. She was competing in the Australian Open main draw for the first time, a milestone not just for her but for Filipino tennis history. Her path into Melbourne was hardly accidental, it was earned. A breakout 2025 season saw her claim valuable WTA points and make notable strides on tour. In Auckland's ASB Classic, she reached the semifinals. In Miami the year before, she shocked the world with a semifinal run and demonstrated she could mix it up with the very best. Her blistering serves, athletic returns, and fearless baseline play had transformed her into a player to watch. Yet for all of her skill, Grand Slams are notoriously merciless. They demand peak performance not once, but over weeks of grueling matches, emotional highs and lows, and unforgiving pressure. Singles, a roller coaster of promise and disappointment. Eala's singles campaign was a masterclass in momentum's fragile nature. On her way into the draw, she was met with American Alicia Parks, a formidable opponent with a punishing serve and sharp ground strokes. And for one scintillating set, her first at Melbourne Park's grand stage, Eala was untouchable. She blanked Parks 6-0, showcasing powerful serves and baseline poise that belied her youth. The racket spoke with authority, the crowd roared with Filipino pride. But in tennis, momentum is a fickle thing. Parks, with her experience and big serving arsenal, clawed back in the second. The match shifted, the pace changed, and Eala's remarkable run crumbled under relentless rallies and hardened nerves. When the final ball was struck, it was Parks's name advancing and Eala walking off with a 6-0, 3-6, 2-6 defeat, a scoreline that mirrored the emotional pendulum of her performance. It was a tough pill to swallow, but Eala took it with dignity. In the aftermath, she posted a reflective message, reminding fans, and perhaps herself, that even losses are part of the journey. Tough loss today, but dropping this here as a reminder to be happy about living out your dreams. even if it comes with bad days, she shared on social media, capturing the spirit of a young athlete in the midst of growth. Doubles, a second chance, and an abrupt farewell. Rather than packing her bags and heading straight home, Eala had another opportunity to extend her Australian Open story, women's doubles. Paired with Brazil's Ingrid Martins, a seasoned doubles player, she was ready to test her all-court game against the more experienced tandem of Shuko Aoyama, Japan, and Magda Linette, Poland. This match was more than points and games. It was a chance at redemption, a second chapter to rewrite the disappointment of singles. For a while, it looked like it might be just that. The first set was electric. Eala and Martins marched to a 4-0 lead, stunning the crowd with their aggressive net play and crisp baseline shots. Yet, just like in singles, they couldn't sustain it. Their opponents leveled at 5-5 and eventually captured the set in a tense tiebreak, 7-6-3. Eala seemed unfazed by the setback. She and Martins roared back in the second, capturing it 6-2 with confident play and tactical savvy, a display of resilience that hinted this match would be a classic. But fate can be cruel. In the deciding set, exhaustion began to show. Eala fought through nagging discomfort and even took a medical timeout before it began, a reminder that the physical demands of back-to-back Grand Slam matches are immense for any player, let alone one juggling singles and doubles. The momentum slipped away early, and the duo fell behind 0-4. Despite courage and brief resistance, the match concluded with a 3-RD set loss, sealing Eala's departure from her first Australian Open. Crowd, pressure, and perspective. Melbourne Park might be thousands of miles from her hometown, but that couldn't stop Filipino pride from filling the stands. Court 6, where Eala played her singles match, pulsed with chants, flags, and a community's collective heartbeat behind her every shot. That kind of energy can elevate a player, or make every missed shot feel heavier. In doubles, the crowd's presence remained palpable. It's rare to see a young player receive such unwavering support on tennis's biggest stage. Yet that spotlight also magnifies every error, every missed volley, and every doubt. For someone still carving her path, that balance between support and pressure is a delicate one. Reflection, an ending or a beginning. To call Eala's Australian Open debut abrupt is true in a scoreline sense. An early exit in both singles and doubles leaves little to show on paper. But to call it merely disappointing would be to miss its larger impact. This tournament told a much richer story. A young champion unafraid to challenge top competitors, grabbing the first set in a Grand Slam match with authority. A player who fights through momentum swings, adapting her tactics under duress. A representative of an emerging tennis nation, carrying the hopes of Filipino fans onto one of tennis's most massive stages. A woman who faced defeat with grace and perspective, encouraging others through her own resilience.